This meeting of the Community Development Board is called to order on October 18. Welcome, everyone. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This board consists of 7 members and 1 alternate who are appointed by the City Council and serve voluntarily. I am Mary Lau, and I will ask the other members and staff to introduce themselves, beginning on my left.
Mike Flannery.
Aubrey Hodricourt.
Andrew Caudell.
Jay Daigneault, attorney for the board.
Matthew Minnich, Assistant City Attorney.
Gina Clayton, Planning and Development.
Samuel Hudkin.
Bruce Rector.
Andy Park.
John Quattrocchi.
Please remember to turn off your cell phones so that they do not become a distraction during the meeting. Please also refrain from having conversations in this room so that we might hear all of the testimony given today. To ensure a complete record of this board's actions, we ask that each individual wishing to speak, including the applicant, speak into the microphone at the podium in front of us, clearly state your name and spell your last name for the clerk. Now I will ask all those in attendance today who plan to speak to please rise and be sworn in by the clerk.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give is the entire truth? Yes. Thank you.
Agendas of today's meeting are on the podium to your left near the entry door. Also on this podium are a roster of the Community Development Board, the list of city staff experts and their resumes, the board's rules of procedures, and the annual schedule of this board. Our first order of business is to review and approve the minutes from last month's meeting. May I have a motion for approval of the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes of the prior meeting.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are approved. Next order of business is to allow people to be heard on any item that is not on today's agenda. Is there anyone present who wishes to speak about something that is not on today's agenda? Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Chairman Lau. Members of the board, I am Bill Johnson, Jonson, 2694 Redford Court West in Clearwater. Let me first commend the city staff for posting all documents for at least the 1524 Highland case together on the Acela website. It's a lot easier if you just have to look in 2 folders instead of trying to go through past history, so thank you. At last month's CDB meeting, I made public comments on 1310 South Washington Avenue, reporting that the staff report wasn't posted timely on the normal website and submitting photographic evidence showing setback inconsistencies with the property in question and the property to the south. Later in the meeting, the board attorney was asked to provide guidance to the board on the delayed posting on the website. At that time, he said, though the city's code requires that material be accessible to the public, it does not require that it be made available via an upload to a website or any particular medium. That may be true, but the notice of the CDB hearing at the bottom has these words. 5 days prior to the meeting, staff reports and recommendations on the above requests will be available for review by interested parties, and then provides the link. I suggest that this inconsistency, although perhaps consistent with the code, underlies the integrity of this body. I believe that you should say what you mean and mean what you say. If, with his orientation to the city code requirements, I question why the board attorney didn't point out another code requirement of section 6-101 dealing with nonconformities, It is not the intent of the development code to encourage their continuation, but instead to bring non-conforming properties into compliance. So that property was already non-conforming, that continuation or expansion of non-conformity should not have been allowed, or at least should have been brought to the attention of the board. But the big issue is saying what you mean and meaning what you say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Is there anyone else present who wishes to speak on an item that's not on today's agenda? All right, we will move on to our consent agenda. This board has adopted a consent agenda format, and the consent items are identified as such on the agenda. Consent agenda items are those for which the Planning and Development Department recommends approval, the applicant is in agreement with any proposed conditions, and no written objections to the case have been received to date. Items may be removed from the consent agenda today by a member of the board, a member of the staff, or any person in the audience for questions or objections. I will read each item on the consent agenda, and if any person wishes to remove this item from the consent agenda, please so state or raise your hand, and we will remove it. Items removed from the consent agenda will be heard in the regular order of the meeting. Items that remain on the consent agenda will be approved with a single vote. Our first item, case FLD 2022-07020 at 1185 Court Street. The owner's In Your Face Skin Care LLC. The location is .753 acres consisting of one parcel on the south side of Court Street, approximately 165 feet west of South Missouri Avenue. The board is reviewing a proposed approximately 6,000 square foot light assembly use in the commercial district for the property located at 1185 Court Street. The proposed project will be approximately 15 feet in height from grade and requests allowable flexibility regarding landscaping, use, setbacks, provision of a loading zone space, and parking. Is there anyone present who wishes to remove this item from today's consent agenda? All right, seeing none. Our second consent agenda item is case FLD 2022-02009 and PLT 2022-01001, located at 1524 and 1532 South Highland Avenue, and an abutting unaddressed parcel, PIN 23-29-15-79254-002-0010. The owner is Highlands West Coast LLC. Representative Sandra Bradbury of Northside Engineering. The location is 1.693 acres consisting of three parcels located on the west side of South Highland Avenue, approximately 517 feet north of the intersection with Bel Air Road. The board is reviewing a 23-lot preliminary plat to construct a 22-unit attached dwelling use in the medium-density residential district for the property at that location, and an abutting unaddressed parcel, the number I read a moment ago. The project will be 30 feet in height, provides 2 off-street parking spaces per unit, and requests allowable flexibility from setback requirements. Is there anyone present who wishes to remove this item from today's consent agenda? All right, Mr. Johnson, we'll remove that and it will be heard in the regular order. Is there a motion to approve item number 1, the remaining item on our consent agenda?
Madam Chair, I move to approve item number 1, case number FLD 2022-07020 on today's consent agenda based on evidence in the record, including the application and the staff report, and hereby adopt the findings of fact and conclusions of law stated in the staff report with conditions of approval as listed.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, item number 1 is approved. Council, does the item removed from the consent agenda go at the end or at the beginning of regular order?
It goes now.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We will take up case FLD 2022-02009 on regular order. The cases that we will be hearing in regular order today are quasi-judicial Level 2 applications. All Level 2 cases, such as flexible development, are considered quasi-judicial hearings. In a quasi-judicial hearing, the board reviews the application, the staff report, correspondence, and all evidence presented today, and makes a final decision subject to appeal. This board has previously qualified the city staff who will testify as experts in their area of professional training, education, and experience. The list of city staff experts and their resumes are in the handbook on the podium near the entry door. Any other professionals who wish to be qualified as an expert witness shall so request at the beginning of the case and present a resume to each board member. The board shall determine whether or not to qualify the person as an expert and in what field of study. At the beginning of each Level 2 case, I will first ask for anyone who wishes to request party status to come forward and state your reasons. Party status may be granted if the person requesting such status demonstrates that he's a substantially affected person. The board will then determine whether or not to grant party status. Then the case will proceed as follows. After request for party status, presentation by planning and development staff, 10 minutes maximum. Presentation by the applicant, 10 minutes maximum. Presentation by persons with party status, 5 minutes per party maximum. Cross-examination of witnesses by planning and development staff. Cross-examination of witnesses by applicant. Cross-examination of witnesses by persons with party status. Comments by the public, 3 minutes per person. Closing remarks by the planning and development staff, 3 minutes maximum. Closing remarks by persons granted party status, 3 minutes maximum. Closing remarks by the applicant, 3 minutes maximum. Closing the public hearing, discussion and vote by the board. Is there anyone who wishes to request party status on case FLD 2022-02009? All right, we'll proceed with the presentation of planning and development staff.
Yeah, I'm going to swear you out. I'll do it first. Madam Chair, I have 2 witnesses for swearing in today.
All right.
I'd like to first start with Ms. Melissa Hawk Baker. I would like her to be sworn in as a witness in general planning, zoning, redevelopment planning, land development code and land development code amendments, special area plans and overlay districts, site plan review, landscape architecture, historic preservation, and comprehensive sign programs.
All right. Is there a motion to approve Ms.
Move
Hawk-Baker?
to approve Melissa Hawk-Baker as an expert witness.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Next, I would ask that the board accept Mr. David Ojeda as an expert witness in civil engineering, land development, utilities, construction and building permits, stormwater, FEMA Federal Emergency Management Agency, floodplain regulations.
I move to approve Mr. Ojeda as an expert witness.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Board. The case before you today is a combination of a Level 2, I'm sorry, Melissa Hauck-Baker, Senior Planner with City of Clearwater Planning and Development Department. And I have the case FLD 2022-02009, which is a Level 2 planning application. And the companion case is a preliminary plat, and the case number is PLT 2022-01001. And it's 3 vacant parcels of land, which constitute 1.693 acres. And it's located on the west side of South Highland Avenue, directly across the street from the LaBelle Plaza, which contains a Publix and other various retail sales and service uses. The property is in the medium-density residential zoning district, and the density that's permitted is through the residential office general future land use category, which allows for 15 dwelling units per acre. The property is surrounded by a mix of single-family homes to the north and to the west, some attached dwelling units, similar townhome type construction to the northeast. And then you've got the commercial plaza, which is retail sales and service to the east, and there's offices to the south. The proposal is a 23-lot preliminary plat. The density that they're proposing they're not taking advantage of the full permitted number of units. So based on the 15 dwelling units per acre, this site, by math, supports 25 dwelling units, and they are proposing 22 dwelling units. And it will be within 4 buildings. And, I'm sorry, my throat, of course, always does this. But, so it's going to be a townhouse development. There will be one building that will be long and it'll be parallel to South Highland Avenue. There will be an internal private drive system that will intersect with the entryway to the Publix Plaza, which you can see on the screen. I've sort of circling around it. The main driveway entrance is at this point, and it's proposed as predominantly a one-way traffic circulation pattern with the vehicles exiting at the southerly area of the lot back onto Highland. We worked extensively with the applicant to develop elevations along the Highland Avenue where there's a 3-foot masonry wall that will be located within the required landscape buffer. And then as you progress towards the dwelling, there will be a walkway leading up to an entryway that has columns and a porch with some architectural definition to it, and as well as the end buildings, which usually are not as extensively articulated with fenestration and columns and details. The applicant has agreed to, at the building on the end of, there's 2 of them, there will be a accentuated entryway that has columns and a porch-covered roof and a walkway that leads up to the entryway from the sidewalk. So we feel that the applicant has really gone sort of above and beyond with the design of it, and the proposal meets all other code requirements. The use itself is required as, at minimum, a level 1 planning application. So in this zoning district, you can't just propose attached dwelling units and go right to building permit. It's either a level 1 planning application, or in this case, because they're requesting a reduced front setback, which is permitted, and the range that you can ask for is between 25 feet and 10 feet. And the project proposes at minimum a 15-foot front setback on the southernmost building along Highland. The remainder of the other building segments are 20 feet and 22 feet, and they are proposing to comply with the required 15-foot landscape buffer. And that would conclude my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions. Yes?
I think I saw a sidewalk in front along Highland.
Yes, there is a sidewalk.
Is that going to connect anything?
I
don't recall, I was out there, I didn't recall.
I don't know that there is a sidewalk. There's portions of it, and some of it is on the east side of Highland. So usually when developments come through, this is the time to ask, you must install the public improvements. So they will be installing it, and then hopefully at some point as things progress, most likely to the south, because to the north you have predominantly single-family homes. But at least there will start to be some sort of pedestrian connection in the area. Yes?
Is there any parking requirements at all as far as each unit?
Yes, so for the attached dwelling use, there are 2 parking spaces per dwelling, which would be 44 spaces, and they are accommodating that through each dwelling unit having a 2-car garage. So they are complying with the code-required parking.
As far as the street and entry, like any issues as far as traffic or anything like that, density-wise?
That would be something that perhaps David could address from the engineering perspective.
I have one last question.
Sure.
In the picture, there's some power lines that run right in front of it. Is there any concern about undergrounding it, or?
That would also be probably even beyond engineering. That would probably be Duke.
Right, I mean, is the owner gonna request that, or you don't know?
That would be something I think that I would have David from engineering perhaps address. Anything else?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. So our traffic engineering group did review this application, didn't find any particular issues with what we had in front of us. We expect to have more requirements applied to this development once it comes to a building permit and we do a more in full depth review. But at this point, we didn't find any deal breakers with the traffic and the ingress and the egress on these.
I mean, is there a light, I don't know where the light is congruent for where you turn in. I don't know if they need a light or anything like that at this point, right? It's just.
No, we really didn't find anything like that.
Okay.
At this point, based again on what we had in front of us, which is a general engineering review criteria we apply at this level.
Is there any plans on widening the road there? I mean, because
No, not that I'm aware of.
And as far as the power lines, as far as you know, they're gonna stay there?
Can you just?
The power lines, are they gonna, as far as you know, they're gonna stay where they are?
Yeah, we don't. They will have to make any changes to that as part of this project.
The tracks from the building is what I'm asking.
Not that I'm aware of. I'm based on our review now.
Any other questions? Thank you. A presentation by the applicant.
Good afternoon. My name is Hushko Vahi. I'm with Northside Engineering. We're located in Clearwater, and I have been sworn in.
Can you spell your name for the clerk?
Yes, Housh, my first name, last name Ghovaee. So Melissa eloquently described the project. She is absolutely right. We spent a lot of time with staff. We had to design and redesign the project several times to be sure that it met all aspects of your code. Staff was extremely helpful, extremely knowledgeable. I'd like to publicly thank them. They did a wonderful job. And she also stated that the number of units per acre that are allowed are much greater than what we're proposing. And the sidewalk that we were discussing here is we're going to build a brand new sidewalk. And she also said that we had gone above and beyond code, so we're going to be piping that ditch. Right now, that ditch is very unsafe. So we're going to pipe that ditch to make sure that there's no issues with, safety. The only variance to the maximum, because your code allows for minimum and maximum setbacks, so the only area that we're alluding to request a reduction, which still within the range, is because of a jog. If you look at the site plan, there is about 7 foot or so jog in the property line, in the right-of-way line. So that jog sort of pushes us into requesting that variance. We're trying to address the side setback, the rear setback, the dimensional requirements of the building, and also access in the back. So it just seemed like that request would make a better project, will allow us to do, you know, what the ownership would like to do and enhance the project with landscaping and fencing. So, you know, we spent a lot of time with the staff, and we feel we have brought a very good project before this board, and we feel that you folks will be extremely proud once this project is built, and we would not want to create any sort of a compromise in any ways. So I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Could you put the site plan back up on the machine and just
Yes.
walk through again the setback issue?
Should I just-
There you go.
Awesome, thank you. So, there's a site plan.
Yes, I just want you to walk through for the board where the setback issue arose and,
Yes, I'll be glad to. Well, I guess I can't, let's see. So should I put my site plan over the
You
site?
can use the mouse and it might be able to.
Okay, here's a mouse. I wish it was color, so you could see it better. Not too good, yeah. So the east property line, as you see, I don't know if this mouse is clear enough for everybody to see, there is a jog in here, and this doesn't show it too. Should we show a site plan without the landscape on it? Melissa, do you mind? Okay, because this is
You
somehow.
can show the,
There you go.
the plat. This shows
It
right
shows the
here
jog.
where the jog is.
Yes, okay, so that's fine. I can use this, any of these arrows then?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm. And the mouse.
Okay, thanks. So that jog that we were discussing is in this very location in here, and, oops, I pushed the wrong button, what do I do now? Sorry about that. There we go. So anyhow, that jog is about 7 feet, some inches, and that sort of, you know, makes us to request that 15-foot setback and not be as consistent with the other setbacks. So, and also, with regards to the utilities and engineering, we had to work really, really hard to come up with this sort of a design to dedicate land to the city for their utility easements, because the city required, you know, certain easements to be retained. So we worked very, very closely with the staff to make sure that was consistent with what they were thinking. It took a long time, but we finally got it to this point. So the setbacks that I was basically describing, you know, there's a 10-foot setback in the back, right in here. And then we had to give some land to the city for easement, and then the buildings, and so there's a building, and then this distance between the two buildings would accommodate access to the building and driveway, and then we have the building, so that sort of pushed us towards requesting that 15-foot setback.
any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you. By the way, I just wanted to also say that Scott Bench is one of the ownership is here, and also one of Northside Engineers, Daniel Schock is here too for any additional questions you might have.
Cross-examination by planning staff?
No cross.
Okay. Cross-examination by the applicant?
None.
All right. We'll proceed to comments by the public.
I do have a photo of the, this is just more of a question before I start my time. I do have a photo of the sidewalk to the south of the property, if you want to see that.
Please
Yes.
identify yourself.
Bill Johnson, 2694 Redford Court West in Clearwater. I would like to thank Ms. Hawk Baker for providing me with considerable information as we discuss this. As I mentioned, there is a sidewalk in front, along Highland, on the west side of Highland to the south that assumedly this will connect up with. Another issue with sidewalks is the sidewalks within the property. If a car is parked on the driveway or the garage apron, but not in the garage, it will block the sidewalk that is going through the development. I would point out that there's an error on the staff report reference on page 6 to section 2-101.d.1. There is no such provision in the code. That's an error, and it relates to mechanical equipment. I couldn't find the reference in a different place. There is no stormwater retention provision in the site plans that were available on the website, which is usually there. The project is being submitted as residential infill, and the application does not contain competent substantial evidence for residential infill. Again, residential infill applies to properties which, due to unique conditions, could not otherwise be developed. There was no evidence in the application that the property could not be developed without this deviation. As you heard before, the property could be developed to 25 units, but is only being developed to 22 units. And it could be developed to 20 units and would not require these front setbacks. Deviations. The front setback that was spoken of by Mr. Gavahi applies to the north building, but the major setback deviation is for the south building. The application requires explanations and evidence. The evidence submitted for the infill project seems to be in error in that it
Mr.
says...
Johnson,
Hold on.
if you intended to put that on the screen, we're not seeing
They're
it.
seeing it, but we're not seeing it up here.
Okay,
Oh, let me, sorry, that's.
okay, thank you.
Because it talks, can you see it now?
Yeah.
Because it talks about the only flexibility requested is for attached dwellings. Well, attached dwellings are not allowed under the basic standard, but they are allowed under flexible development. And can I continue just a little bit?
Just wrap it up.
So it seems like the applicant has been confused with the provision of information, which is not what's required by the burden of proof. The burden of proof is that the applicant shall submit substantial competent evidence. It's not in the record that's on the website. And when I asked for city staff assistance, I did not find that as well.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Let's proceed to closing remarks by the planning staff.
Thank you. Melissa Baker, Senior Planner, Planning and Development Department. The case before you is a permitted use in this zoning district. And at minimum, someone who would be proposing attached dwelling units in this type of zoning district would require a planning application. Depending on the amount of flexibility that they may need for the actual development, then determines if it stays as a level 1 application or if it progresses to a level 2 application. And due to the fact of the easement and other land issues along the western side of this L-shaped property, that resulted in having to shift the buildings closer to Highland Avenue, and thus creating the need for the front setback reduction. The minimum that they're asking for is 15 feet. the code provides that they could actually ask between 10 and 25 feet. So they're not asking for the maximum, it's within a range. The development is also similar in layout to the previously approved Santorini Trace, which the board approved and is immediately adjacent sort of to the northwest. Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
given that flexibility, is it going to cause any kind of visual as far as turning or anything like that? You know?
So the site visibility triangles are all adhered to and applied at the point where the private drives will intersect with South Highland Avenue. And the fact that the applicant is proposing only a 3-foot-high masonry wall, which will not occur within the site visibility triangle. So I think the combination of the lower wall and the fact that it will be set back at least 20 feet from where the private property line intersects with Highland Avenue, it will provide for an even larger area and a better view for folks who are traversing in and out of the site.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you.
Any closing remarks by the applicant?
Be glad to. Ushkawahi Northside Engineering. I listened to Mr. Johnson, and he brought up a couple points with regards to mechanical equipment. We have placed a note on the plan that all mechanical equipment must meet the City of Clearwater regulations with regards to buffering. He also talked about drainage. If you look at sheet C4.1, we are specifically showing that there is drainage shown on that plan. It's a storm tech system, and we have provided calculations to the city. So as far as drainage, although it's not required at this stage of the game, but we have provided that to the city. And I think he made a statement towards the sidewalks. So we're putting a 5-foot sidewalk in front of the property, connecting north and south sidewalks together. That will be 5 feet, and it'll meet ADA regulations. So
may I just clarify, because I'm not up to current runoff regulation requirements. Usually there's a retention, on-site retention of some type, but I don't know how it would apply to this property. I know why it's there is to keep rivers from going too fast, the streams are too fast, and to absorb runoff from roads and things like that. Can you just explain again, does this site, would it have is there a reason it did not need it, or why?
oh, it does need retention.
And how's that being handled?
It is being handled through a system called Storm Tech. And what Storm Tech is a series of half-size pipe with gravel beneath the pipe and gravel around the pipe. There is volume in that, as you know, Mr. Landry, yourself, you're an engineer, so those drainage, that's a drainage system that will provide the drainage requirements for the city. We also have to meet Swift mud and Pinellas County regulations. So it's all.
So where's that located on the site plan?
Look at sheet C4.1.
I mean, no, I'm not on the drawing itself.
It's in the middle. It's in the middle, and you see inlets and you see a pipe system.
Okay.
So
That was essentially that's
yes.
where I'm going. Thank you.
Yes, exactly. So once it gets to that level, as far as the city will be able to look at the calculations and say, yes, this meets code. And of course, I've been here for 43 years and I know the city regulations generally in terms of volume.
All right, anything else? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll be closing the public hearing, a discussion for the board and a vote. Anyone have comments? I think that the applicant has met the burden of proving that this meets the code, and I'm inclined to support it. Is anyone prepared to make a motion?
Chair, I'd like to move to approve case number FLD 2022-02009 /PLT 2022-01001 based on the evidence and testimony presented in the application, the staff report, and at today's hearing, and hereby adopt the findings of fact and conclusions of law stated in the staff report with conditions of approval as listed.
Is there a
Second.
Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, this item is approved. Our final level 2 item is case FLD 2022-05016 slash PLT 2022-05006.
Madam Chair, at this time I would ask that the board accept Mr. Mark Perry as an expert witness on the following subjects: general planning, zoning, redevelopment planning, land development code and land development code amendments, special area plans and overlay districts, site plan review, and landscape architecture.
Madam Chair, before you move on, we may wish to see if there are persons requesting party status on the application.
Of course, I'm remiss in doing that. Is there anyone present who would like to seek party status for this item? All right. Is there,
Chair, I do have 2 experts here. Do you want to do that now, or when I come up to speak?
We'll do those when you come up.
yeah, that sounds good. All right, is there a motion to accept Mr. Perry as an expert in the fields identified?
We accept him as an expert in the field.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Well, I don't have it.
Okay, sure. We actually have one more expert witness we'd like to swear in. I would ask the board to accept Mr. David Ojeda in the fields of, as an expert witness in the fields of civil engineering, land development, utilities, construction and building permits, stormwater, FEMA Federal Emergency Management Agency floodplain regulations.
Is there a motion?
A motion to accept Mr. Ojeda as an expert witness.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Mark Perry, Planning and Development. The 2.38 acre site is located at the intersection of North Belcher and Old Coachman Roads. It's zoned commercial with an underlying future land use classification of residential, office, retail. The site is developed with a gas station, with an accessory but boarded up car wash approved in 2001 as part of a flexible standard development, and it was built as approved. A Publix grocery store is adjacent to the south of the site. Single-family homes exist to the north and east across Old Coachman, and townhomes are located across Belcher to the west. The subject site does not include direct access to either adjacent street. Access to the site is exclusively from the adjacent parcel to the south. The subject and Publix sites operate together as a retail plaza. The proposal is to split the property almost evenly into 2 parcels, with the north parcel as parcel 1 and the south parcel as parcel 2. The existing structure will be removed. Parcel 1 is proposed to be developed with a car wash, which is classified as a limited vehicle service use. Parcel 2 will be developed with multi-tenant retail plaza. No request for flexibility is made for the retail plaza, as it meets all the applicable components of the Community Development Code and the Comprehensive Plan. The request and focus of the application are specific to the development of proposed parcel 1. Car washes are permitted in the C district as a level 2 flexible development application, provided that, among other criteria, that no bays face a street. The site as a tri-frontage lot provided a challenge in this regard, as there was no reasonable way to design a car wash without at least one bay facing a street. Therefore, the applicant opted to submit the application as a comprehensive infill redevelopment project. This use, comprehensive infill redevelopment project, is defined in Article 8 of the Community Development Code as a project which is designed and located in a special or innovative form with special functions or character which are beneficial to a particular part of the city of Clearwater and the citizens of the city of Clearwater as a whole. Staff and the applicant have worked diligently together to achieve a project which, with one point of contention, meets the definition of a comprehensive infill redevelopment project and is supportable. Many of the trees have been preserved. An attractive landscape plan, which also provides for the preservation of much of the existing tree canopy, has been provided. A building placement, which maximizes the distance between the north end of the building and Old Coachman Road, is provided. And an attractive building design is provided. All of which contribute towards mitigating the inclusion of one bay, the building's vehicular exit, facing that portion of Old Coachman as it intersects with North Belcher at the north end of the site. However, as noted, there is one point of contention. As part of the proposal, the applicant is showing 10 vacuum booms located along the west side of the site along North Belcher Road. The vacuum booms will be approximately 11 feet tall with a span of 14 feet. The code is performance-based with a focus on aesthetics. This is evident in several code and comprehensive plan provisions. For example, the intent and purpose of the code provides that it is the further purpose of this development code to make the beautification of the city a matter of the highest priority. The city's comprehensive plan provides that development is to promote high-quality design standards that support Clearwater's image and contribute to its identity. The comprehensive plan also designates North Belcher Road as a designated scenic primary corridor. One of the primary functions of a comp infill is to ensure high quality of design. And this is embodied in its specific use criteria, particularly criterion 6, which focuses on design. The general applicability criteria further require that proposals include a design which minimizes adverse visual effects. Staff believes that the provision of a row of vacuum booms along North Belcher Road is antithetical to the intent and purpose of the code, applicable components of the comprehensive plan, the definition and specific use criteria of a comprehensive infill redevelopment project, and the general applicability criteria. Staff fails to see how the provision of these 11-foot by 14-foot vacuum booms along North Belcher Road meets the litmus test as provided by the code and the comprehensive plan. Therefore, staff cannot support the proposal with the inclusion of these vacuum booms along North Belcher Road. As this is the only point of contention, staff has opted to include a condition of approval, condition 5, which basically requires the removal of the vacuum booms along the west side of the site along North Belcher Road. Provided that condition 5 is maintained, staff supports the proposal and recommends approval as the proposal is otherwise consistent with the applicable noted CDC section and components of the comprehensive plan. Without condition 5, staff cannot support the proposal. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them. Yes.
Maybe it will come up later.
Yeah.
But I just don't quite understand why the developer just doesn't say, I agree. They're apparently contending and don't want your changes, or they would have just said, we'll take them out.
Correct.
So we have a developer that doesn't see it your way.
Correct. It has happened.
Are there other items that we'll be fighting with them all the way through and everything else on this project later on? Because
It's my understanding that this is the point of contention.
There's no other options, please?
Yeah, just not provide them. They are providing some vacuum booms directly along the building. You can see here that they will have 12 directly along the building, which are attached to the building or right on it. Our only issue as staff really is limited to these booms right here along North Belcher. That's it. There's 10 of them, and we believe that they should be removed. These 12, we believe, can stay as they are.
Is it the vacuum boom itself, or the actual? I'm looking at that as an example. You know, you see these going up everywhere, they have different looks. Is it the vacuum boom itself or the look of the vacuum as it is on that picture?
This is a drawing that was provided to us by the applicant, and these are from the applicant's website. So they're, the arc is a little flatter in this drawing, but the general idea is a series of booms just like this.
I guess I'm just wondering that, we're talking about a crossover of 10, 20, 30 feet, so that these booms are just closer to the road and visually unappealing.
Correct.
Is there a need for the extra booms?
I wouldn't think so. I would think that 12 vacuum booms would suffice, but regardless, we've had compromise with, with mitigation for providing a better building design, providing better landscape design, preserving most of the trees. So again, the only point of contention are these booms directly along Belcher Road, which is a designated scenic corridor.
Are we getting rid of foliage there? Is that what you're saying, to get the other, the other ones?
No, we're still going to have landscape coverage and tree canopy preservation, but these booms, in staff's opinion, just doesn't meet the litmus test for a comprehensive infill. It doesn't meet the aesthetic requirements that are provided throughout the code.
Do we have other examples of car washes that have a certain amount of these amount of booms? Is there examples or comparisons of density, resident density, based off how many vacuum booms? You know what I mean?
I can provide pictures that.
I know there's one on Gulf to Bay, Mr. Car Wash, they have a certain amount, and I see what you're saying. I'm just trying to see how the developer side is. Hey, there's the amount of density. These are how many booms we need, so to speak.
Well, that would certainly be a question for the developer.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
If they don't have the booms, then they have a bunch of parking spots, which they can have without the booms.
Correct.
But what do they need any parking spots for? I mean, can they use, would they then want to come back and reutilize that parking equivalent space for 15 cars, or moving something over and taking advantage of that or something? I mean, or are they just gonna pave it over and leave out the booms? I guess, I don't know.
Well, as far as.
What their play would be back on their side, their response, if they just took off the booms, or they just use them as parking spots.
Correct. They would just be parking spots, and they are required based on 5 spaces per 1,000. So they are required parking spaces. So
Okay.
yeah.
They're not just excess parking, they need them anyway.
Correct.
I'm trying to make sure I understand the interpretation of the code from the city standpoint. Is there a way to build or design some additional architectural building structure that incorporates the booms that would allow the city to view that differently, or no? Because right now I see the functionality of the booms, but I don't see a lot of design to it. Is there an additional structure that could be built that would allow that to happen, or no, from the city standpoint, from staff standpoint?
When you start building additional structure, you start kicking in more parking requirements. We'd have to think about that. I mean, is it possible to build a second structure for the sole purpose of providing a vacuuming building?
I don't even necessarily mean a building, well, yeah.
I mean, a fence.
Maybe just a wall.
I don't even necessarily mean a building, I mean some type of structure that provides the view to Belcher that the city wants, that still allows that. Obviously, there's a lot of detail in that. I'm just, in theory, is that something that would be feasible or no?
Well, I mean, BJ's built a auxiliary building to hide their gas pumps along 580. So theoretically, yes, but they might be back here then looking for a parking reduction. I mean, that's a scenario that we can certainly go back to the drawing board.
Mark, could you clarify the height of the booms? Aren't they 14 feet?
Yeah, the booms are 11 feet tall, and at least per this drawing, a little bit over 11 foot tall, and with a span of 14 feet. So to the question I was hearing on this side about fencing, yes, a fence, maximum fence height is 6 feet, still wouldn't really do much. And ideally, we'd probably prefer just to have the landscaping rather than fencing.
If these booms faced Old Coachman, would that be viewed differently from the city's standpoint, or would that have the same requirement?
It would be the same issue. We just feel that a compromise is to remove these booms.
Mr. Perry, 22 spaces are required for that northern parcel, right?
I believe so, yeah.
And they're providing 27.
I believe so.
So then only be 5 above what's required, so they need to have amount of parking spots on that site as it is.
Yeah, they're just about right at their parking requirement.
Anything else? All right, thank you, Mr. Perry.
Thank you.
Presentation by the applicant?
Madam Chair, I have two gentlemen here we'd like to present to you, Eli Payne and Stephen Sposato. Eli has 9-year experience in civil engineering, works in private, Todd Pressman, 200 2nd Avenue South, number 451, St. Petersburg, Florida. As I was indicating, Eli has had 9 years' experience with private land development projects.
Excuse me, can you spell the name of the...
Oh, yes.
Witnesses you want to...
Eli is E-L-Y, Payne is P-A-Y-N-E. He's experienced as a professional engineer in the discipline of civil engineering, development, site design, land development, transportation, landscaping plans, and stormwater. And then I have Mr. Stephen Sposato, who is an AICP planner.
Spell that name for us, please.
Yes. Stephen is S-T-E-P-H-E-N. Sposato is S-P-O-S-A-T-O. He's an AICP planner. He's worked both private and public. He's well-experienced and credentialed in the discipline of planning, including site design, landscape, transportation, site development and design, stormwater, and zoning. If I may submit these resumes to you.
You have copies for the board? You have copies of the resumes for the board members? Yeah. Madam Chair, the board's rules require that copies of resumes be available for experts who have not been previously qualified before the board. The rule belongs to the board. You can waive it if you'd like to pass those resumes around for your board members' consideration, then you can make a determination as to whether you wish to qualify Mr. Sposato and Mr. Payne as experts.
All right, let's go forward.
Alternatively, you can adhere to the rule, at which point in time you would not be qualifying them as experts.
All right, it's my judgment that we should pass around the resumes and let the board members review it, and then we can make a decision as a board. based on review of the resumes that we've been provided, is,
May I ask a question?
sure.
I am not familiar with, I'm familiar with PE requirements. You know, there's a license, and if somebody with a PE messes up, you go after a license. Now, for the landscape architect, the letters I saw there, is that a license, there's a license number go with that, that number? Is there a license that's actually with the state or anything like that that makes it, you know, where there's consequences of what you can do? Can you just provide that, is that, landscape has that, number that goes with that?
I'm not sure what your question is, sir.
Well, you know, as a PE, if you have after me, you go up to look me up and you say, you messed up because of X, Y, Z, here's your number and your license, and we can go after you. I'm just saying, is there equivalence for the landscape side? I know there's letters with it, you've been admitted to it into the group, but is there a license number that goes with that? And you can on record? I want to know how solid that is.
You're referring to the PE, sir?
Well, not the PE, I understand what a PE does, but is the landscape, is the architect, is the, Mr. Spotto, is he also has a license that goes, number that goes with that? Is that a license?
I am a certified planner, AICP, I think similar to some of your planning staff.
Certified the same as licensed?
It's a certification, it's not a professional license. We did have, and I'm with Level Up Consulting, a professional landscape architect did prepare the landscape plan that's included in the information that's been provided to the city. So where you see specific landscape information, plants, the types, the locations, that was all done by a professional landscape architect who is licensed, has a number, is required to go through, similar educational accreditation processes that a PE does in terms of, annual updates.
They have a license number that goes.
They do have a license number, yeah. That person is not here today, but they did prepare the landscape plan for this project.
Well, what the landscape has to do with the growth and things like that, not particularly these vacuum booms.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's correct.
Who is responsible for saying those vacuum booms look good?
I think that's an aesthetic variable.
If we're saying that they look good and we have somebody that says they don't.
I will testify, I think, Mr. Pressman will.
They look good, and
I think
if they don't look good, we can come back and get you. Come on. I just want to know who's sitting there on the line to say, my name's on the line.
I think what I will testify to is consistency with your codes.
You think they look good?
Ordinances.
Do you think we can squeeze them through, or do you think they look good?
And I think I'm going to start presenting at this point, or, yeah, I guess if it's okay, I will come back and try to answer that question.
All right, any thoughts, board members, on whether we should qualify one or the other of these gentlemen as experts?
I move to qualify both gentlemen as experts.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Thank you, Madam Chair, board members. Again, Todd Pressman for the record. As Mr. Perry has indicated, and I must say I've worked with Mr. Perry for about 20 years or so, this is by far the best report and most positive report I've ever received from him. And he was very clear that we move forward with a lot of work and a lot of diligence and a lot of compromise to get down to one particular point. So I will say to you, as you look at the existing site, its current use, which I would describe as 1970s or 1980s architecture site design, we're going to take this far into the future to the 2022 requirements and make this place look great. The vacuums are the sole point of contention, and let me say to you that we worked through a lot of issues, but the vacuums, as indicated, are a critical part of this development, and it is a deal breaker. So we ask you, as I will show you improvements that we've made, do not throw the baby out with the bathwater. So as you look at this site, it's mechanical devices that you can see from both right-of-ways. There's no landscaping, it's just a pure concrete pad. And indicating as well, it's really just one expensive concrete pad. There is a car wash that's boarded up and is disrepair. As you can see it here, there was a car wash. The site's looking very poorly, the dumpster's looking poorly, unkept. This is what we're going to bring this site to. 2022 architecture, on all sides. This is an aerial by computer design. As you can see, the amount of landscaping and natural trees that will remain at the particular site, it's very green, it's very positive. Staff report has been very supportive, again, looking at that one particular point. So we took care of the AC unit. That was one issue. We took care of that late last week. So again, as Mark's indicated, only the vacuums and the air conditioning has been moved to an acceptable location. So I want to go through the progression steps of site plan improvement for you. This is how the site was originally under the DRC. As you can see on the screen, the car wash and the retail. What we did was, in yellow are the vacuums that were under contention by the staff. And what we did was we reoriented the site to pull those into the site, along with some other corrective actions. So the first thing we did was we moved the orientation, as you can see, to move it away from Belcher Road. Now, the separate green triangles were a result of additionally saved buffer trees. And that's in your plan that's submitted to you. So we were able to reduce the building size to a smaller size, move some things around the plan, and save quite a large number of buffer trees. Particularly in that little window where that red arrow is, that's the window of visibility that's of concern. If you look at the building that I have in black, that provides a lot of buffering and screening as well in that window. And these are the existing saved buffer trees. You can see the existing car wash there. These have been trees on the north side that have been kept on site. So because of that movement, the vacuums now are at a minimum of 25 feet to a maximum of 85 feet off of Belcher Road. 15 feet is the minimum buffer. So we think we've done really good with that. And staff has indicated, Mark indicated to you, there's very lush landscaping, exceeds the CDC requirements. Many mature shade trees will be preserved. But we wanted to go a step further. Like I say on TV, but there's more. So we are submitting today additional buffer landscaping, as you can see in the green triangle, which will close that small gap of visibility to the vacuums. And zooming in, what we're proposing today, Eli, do you have the plans you can submit? We'll submit this plan to you as well. So what we've done is we've added a second 4-foot hedge all along that vacuum line. We've added 5 new trees from 6 feet to 8 feet to 10 feet, specifically in that one area that is open. I'll pass this plan around to you as soon as I finish, if I may, Madam Chair. So that's improved landscaping, and by computer generation, this is an aerial rendering of all the green improvements. You can see that there's substantial buffering and screening by landscaping on that vacuum line. And by computer generation, this is exactly what it will look like from Old Coachman, with the additional planting and the mature trees that are saved. And this is the view from the northern perspective, again, computer generated. The third corrective step, which we did discuss and I made Mark aware of at very late last week, is that the color of the vacuums will be a neutral color. And that was a big change for the operator, but we're trying to move through and meet expectations as best we can. So this is generated as what you would typically see. We're proposing them in a neutral color. And this would be how the site would look at one particular neutral color with the mature landscaping. So in summary, we've worked closely and diligently with the staff. It will be light years improvement from the current use. The use is use that is on the site now or was on the site or permissible use. We eliminated the AC machinery. According to Mr. Perry and the report, we meet all other criteria and regulations. We propose many actions, which include the reorientation of the vacuums, which gives us further from the right-of-way, and the building help screens. Site plan revisions to save the screens, added a second hedge and second-tier landscaping, which are under acceptable species under the Clearwater Code. Agreed to neutral vacuum colors, reduce the building size, and again, repeating the neutral color. So with that, I'd like to ask Stephen if you would come up, please, and make a few comments if we may, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Put the site plan back up. That's actually the aerial with the landscape.
This?
One more. My name is Steven Sposato. I think it's already spelled, but I'll spell it again, Sposato. Certified planner. I've been practicing over 25 years. Most of that has been in the state of Florida. I also would like to compliment the staff and the diligence and the comprehensiveness of the process just to get to this point today. I do have a difference of opinion in terms of the one point that Todd brought out in terms of the placement of the vacuums adjacent to Belcher. The code regulating the placement treats it as an accessory or secondary use. Again, in our minds, it really functions more as a second phase in the car wash process, although we understand how this sort of fits within the definitions of the code. But the code, is not envisioned, it can't predict all the different circumstances, all the different types of arrangements that there are in the city of Clearwater. It's not a one-size-fits-all, and it also is especially beneficial when we're dealing with the redevelopment of an existing site, as we talked about, that has multiple frontages, and also that there's an existing convenience gas station on the site. And so we're interpreting the code based on both design and process. And in fact, this, why we're here is because situations like this require judgment and interpretation. Go back to the main point, or the point that code can't predict, nor is it a one-size-fits-all. So we definitely appreciate the opportunity to present what we believe that what is being presented is consistent with the code. Generally, it fosters the redevelopment of a lawfully created parcel in development. We're not intensifying the use. We're not expanding the use that's already there on the site. It's already, that type of use is already being experienced within the community. So we're not going from a parcel that's undeveloped to a developed parcel. We're rehabilitating, redeveloping an existing parcel. The layout remains integrated into the shopping center. It was brought up by staff and Todd that we're not asking for new access points or anything different in terms of the, okay, I got 1 minute, all right. I guess my key point is that the accommodation being made related to the angle of the parking, along with the location of the retail building and landscaping, both preservation of the existing landscaping and the new landscaping, breaks up and it diffuses the sight line. So if you're traveling along Belcher, your eye is sort of running north and with the road. And if you can see how we don't have just a linear buffer, 15 feet along Belcher, it's broken up by the stormwater, the building, the landscaping, and so it's not parallel, but it's at an angle, and so your sight lines do not directly look into the site. And then neither is there an access point directly adjacent to where the booms are. So there's no clear sight line into the site from Belcher. And again, this is an aesthetic concern, and so I think overall we're addressing those aesthetic concerns, we're mitigating for it, and so we believe what's being proposed exceeds the code.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Right.
Happy to answer any questions you might have.
So,
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
So the coloring, the booms, you said that you changed the coloring. Are they red? Are they not? I mean, because when you go back to the picture of the booms themselves, I was trying to understand we said you changed the coloring, right? Is that?
We've agreed to a condition that was raised by the staff to provide the entire vacuum mechanics to a neutral color.
So it's not the red that I'm seeing?
That's correct.
Okay. What is the color?
A neutral color.
Do we know what?
Neutral colors, as I've looked it up, just Google search, is black, gray, silver. It was a term that I believe we received from the staff, or that it was a range of colors that are not strong or eye-catching, much more quieter tone colors.
Have you picked it? I mean, or we're just got these 7 colors and you're going to decide which one that is?
I believe the choice is silver. Yes, the choice is silver.
Okay. And the other thing is, what were the other things that were of compromise? We heard about the AC unit. What other things did you compromise with the staff that you were, because you said there was a couple things. I didn't know if there was more than the AC unit, other things that you guys worked with the city on.
Let me bring Eli up. Eli worked on the project from the beginning. I came and worked towards the end. Eli, you want to come up and just list those things for them as best you can recall, please?
How's it going? Eli Payne, Level Up Consulting, engineer for the project. Payne, P-A-Y-N-E. Couple of things we did was work on pulling the building back further away from the right-of-way, as well as turning the parking. And our original submittal had the green space kind of centralized, but we kind of flipped it, put it on the right-of-way side. Yeah, that was the two main things, and then adding buffering, screening all the way around, and then recently we've added a second row of hedge around too.
Okay.
Saving mature trees. Yep, and saving, one of the points staff made was originally we were saving some trees on the front end. We wanted to pull the parking back even further to make sure we were confirmed that those trees will definitely be saved, providing extra distance there from the roots.
And so we're putting mature trees, those 8 and 10 mature trees up in that area, those, the new things that you added, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yep. Okay.
Is that an exit at the, where the curve is there onto Delta?
I'm sorry, sir?
Is there an exit where the curve is in your pathway around? Is there an exit onto Delta right there?
Yeah, so the bottom, just south, I don't know if we can zoom out, but just south there's an exit there. It's actually not located on our parcel, but the adjacent commercial.
No, I'm sorry. I'm looking where the curve, where it comes out, where the traffic flows out of the
Of the car wash, no.
car wash. There's, okay, so there's no exit right there.
Yep. There's no additional access points proposed in the project.
And you guys will maintain this greenery that you're all putting in, right? Is that part of the responsibility of the
Yes, sir.
owner?
Yep.
I appreciate the changes you've made. I always get to a concern, I have to really work it through really heavily when the city, who are, sometimes I don't agree with because they make things too easy. And if they disagree with something, I gotta really make sure I understand, they probably have a real point that they're concerned about. And so I really wanna listen to this. But partly what we have is you're saying you had to go to corporate to get the colors of the poles changed, which sort of surprised me. So this is a corporate body and building here. They really actually have control of what we're discussing here because, if you had to go to them and say, we want to pay them something other than your whatever you want, I feel that pretty top down. But on the other hand, you've done a lot of things, and it's I'm sort of trying to figure out how far back, if in a perfect world, the city would not have any problem at all with the ones that are overhead. I mean, if the lower part that are back 30 foot from the road, are those okay? Or is it only the top 5 that are close to the roadway that are now the concern? And I don't know if they've already reviewed these new changes or not, so I'll leave it for them. But those are my concerns right now is, and I guess I don't know if I can ask this because it gets into business things that are sort of beyond you want to say, but maybe, perhaps, but why is that exact number of overhead things a deal breaker as opposed to, say, taking out 5 or something like that? I just do not understand what's the driver on that. And how many could you take out and make everybody happy if you took out 5 parking spots without the overheads? Would still people be happy?
So we have a representative here from Modwash,
That would help.
the developer, and he can probably answer that question for you about how.
Not my goal to stop a good project. That's not my effort here. So if I get to get better understanding, I'd appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Before you have them come on up, I just wanted to go on with your trees. Do you have identified the 6 to 8 trees that you're looking to add in the proposal with this new landscape? Is it identified on there for them to consider and staff to look at?
Yeah, there's a.
So they're not
landscape
palm
plan.
trees, or if they're oak
Yeah,
trees, or if they're live oaks, or if they're.
They're called out.
Okay.
Madam Chair, if I may, let me introduce Jim Treadwell. Jim is with the operator.
Yep.
Yes, hi, everyone. Jim Treadwell with Hutton Development. We're the owners of the Mod Wash facility.
And can you spell your name for the clerk?
Yeah, that's Tredwell, Jim Treadwell.
Sorry, T-R-E-W-L-L.
Correct.
And were you sworn in?
What's that?
You were sworn in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, just want to make a general statement first. We've been working very closely with our consultants and indirectly with staff in making sure that we're responsive to all the major issues. And we're very flexible to make this project a reality. We're very proud of what we've done in terms of adhering to the buffers, the setbacks, the visual sight lines, and the fact that we're not disrupting the circulation patterns outside of our site. We're not adding any more access points. So in that regard, we're very proud of this project. As far as the booms, we would prefer, of course, to have the plan that we show right now, but if need be, if we needed to reduce the number of booms, we would certainly agree to that. There are other mitigating factors that we could include, maybe keep some of them on one end and maybe reduce the ones below it, or stagger them, or even consider putting up more of a decorative screen of some sort. These booms are very thin. We're going with a neutral color. We don't think it's very obtrusive for people that are driving along that road, and we prefer to have the booms because it signals that there's a car wash, and for vehicles coming there, that's one of the first things that they would see. But we had to compromise in terms of the landscaping, and we looked at it very closely as far as the sidewalk area and the people looking up, and I think this looks almost like a park when you're driving there, and when you have a park, you have little fountain areas and things, so we didn't think the booms were really an issue. I was very surprised to hear that, but irregardless, we are flexible to reduce the number. As far as an exact number, I don't have that number in front of me, but whatever would be a good number to compromise with the board, whatever they come up with.
Now, I don't know your business, and you know a lot better than I do, but 20 sounds like a lot. It looks like a vacuum farm, but I mean, to me, I understand the staff's concern because, and I would think that would be a lot to fill and use, but again, I don't know your business, but.
Right.
If it's just to attract people, it's seeing a number of them that draws people in. That concerns me that you need that many.
Right. What do we have? I'm just trying to remind, how many do we have currently with this? What is it?
On that side?
Yeah, well, it's total booms, I think, 26?
20
Okay.
22 booms.
Oh, 22
Two
booms.
booms. You got 12
Yeah.
on the east side and 10 booms on the street side, the west side.
We tend, our sweet spot is between 18 and 22 is typically what we see on most projects. We did reduce the size of the tunnel to also a lot, but maybe we can stagger it, one idea. Maybe instead of having a complete row, maybe every other one.
I do want to point out, because I'm a monthly member of like a car wash, and just to let you know that I've experienced vacuums always filled. So I can see the need. I understand that area well. I will in Golta Bay, they have about 8 or 9, and they're filled sometimes. You have to go back. So I actually get the need. On the contrary, that besides attraction, it's actually a need that in that area, I'm sure they'll have them all filled. So I do understand the business part of that because I've witnessed it, I've seen it and experienced it, and also understand the density in that area and the need of that. So I do believe you did a great job in trying to cover it. If there's a visual obtuse scenario with it, I do believe that the company has done a great job in trying to meet all the standards, to help.
That's a good point.
I would,
Okay, if you don't have any other questions, I'll sit down.
Well, I'd like to just make the point too, as Mike brought up, and as we're making statements here, my concerns were the color of the booms. There's one that's going up on US 19 in the county, but it's US 19, and they're orange. And they're very attractive to see, because that's what they're trying to do, is to gain attention. This property sits back, the car wash sits back off the road, and they're trying to gain the attention to it. some are gonna like it, some are not gonna like it, but it's also US 19. There's everything in the world out on US 19.
Good point.
And I can respect staff's intent here. I mean, Belcher Road is classified in that area as a scenic corridor. And so, I mean, those are the situations, this property is situated there, and we have to deal with it being there. I like the thought of the additional landscaping. I think you guys have compromised a lot. I mean, I have a development background. I think you are doing, there comes a point, there's only so much you can do, before the bag breaks, and I like it. I like the identification of the trees. That's for staff to consider what they are, what they're proposing. The second row of hedges, to make it aesthetic. Landscaping is always good. I would prefer landscaping over a fence any day or a screen any day if we can get away with it and it serves the purpose and it solves the issue. As far as the colors, the neutral, it was a concern of me too, of what neutral was. I would like that color identified to be something, I can understand it being different than the building, but closer to what the building is, because you're going to see the building and it will blend with the building if it's something similar to it instead of the orange or the bright red. That conflicts with your marketing, free marketing side of it, but it gets your job done to create your sweet spot. So I mean, if those items suffice for staff with what you're proposing today, I don't have a problem with it. If they have a hang up on it, I would strongly recommend, I see the booms on the southern end, those 5 or 6 spaces, the 5 spaces on the south to have them and the 5 spaces to the north corner not having them. They would be tucked back behind the trees. They're farther away from the road. They're not 25 feet. They're 80 feet at the one spot, if I see that correctly. I mean, that compromise might be the last compromise with staff to get it over the edge. I'd like to hear from them before this is over. But that's, it is on Belcher Road. I mean, that's just my thought.
And I just, to simplify, because I like simple, your difference of opinion with the city staff on compliance with the code is you believe that particularly with the landscaping and the other things you propose to do, it's a sufficient screen and sufficient blocking of between the right-of-way and the building structure that you believe that complies with the code requirements. Am I overstating, understating?
I think that's very wisely said. I would just say it that we believe the additional items do more than enough to buffer and screen the vacuums of concern.
Thank you. Anyone else?
So, the compromise you have made here, this is just for me to understand it, is that you had looked at having them along the road essentially because they were advertisements. People would see you had a car wash there. So you've moved them back so they're no longer an advertisement. So you're going to have to really have a good operation there to bring people in and make it a better place, but without having the advertisement along the road. And so your compromise on this is not just where you've moved them, but the fact that don't have a big sign up that says car wash.
Right.
Essentially, that's where you're going with this, and that's worth of note.
Yes, it
Is
And
there
I
any,
won't shoot myself in the foot by saying that I've seen an awful lot of power poles up along this area, and I don't know if there's more shaded like they are like here, I don't know if I'll notice them from power poles and I go by, especially I noticed that my friend is about 25 feet back at that farthest corner.
unless I missed it on the civil documents, is there any signage other than the signage on the building proposed?
I apologize, I'm sorry.
Signage.
Unless I missed it on the civil documents, is there any other signage proposed other than on the building?
Good afternoon, Ellen Crandall, Planning and Development. Signage is addressed and permitted separately. It's not part of the site plan approval before you today. I'm sure they would like signage, but it's handled separately.
Madam Chair, you have additional things to get through with your hearing, so I suggest that unless there are additional questions for the applicant, that we move on.
No, I think we can proceed to cross-examination of the...
Mr. Dagnall, Madam Chair, if I may, with the discussion about the number of vacuums, Mr. Treadwell will move forward to ask your consideration for the strip of vacuums on Belcher would be a vacuum at every other space versus the total line. So we'll take that one additional step. So rather than a vacuum, as you can see on the plan, at every parking spot, we would propose and ask your consideration, there'd be a vacuum at every other spot along on the side of Belcher.
Would he consider just eliminating, say, 3 or 4 instead?
I'm sorry, sir?
Would he consider just eliminating 3 or 4 of them instead at that end?
Yeah, the top 3.
He can leave the rest of them.
As an alternative, we could do that as well.
Either one. I mean, that pulls everything back more, that's what I'm saying.
All right.
We're here to work with the board and staff, and Mr. Trell indicates he'd be happy to do that if we can hopefully conclude this today and move forward. Thank you.
Gina?
If the board is inclined for us to work with the applicant on a little different than what was submitted, I would ask that perhaps you either continue it for a month for us to work it out so that we can do that, or at the very minimum, continue it, allow the director's item to go forward, and then we can try to work it out and then come back.
Would that be acceptable to the applicant?
With great respect, Madam Chair, we're always, again, happy to work with the staff and the board. Really, what you're looking at today would be approval with consideration of the landscaping improvement that you have planned in front of you, and as we just indicated, a reduction in the number of vacuums. The color, I believe, the color neutral, which I'm indicating is silver, has been already agreed to and is part of the staff report, I believe. So there's really just 2 elements if the board would consider to move forward.
But at the same time, it might be beneficial to all of the participants here if there was an opportunity to get agreement between the applicant and the city, so that you could bring this back next month before the board with a recommendation of approval from the city.
Again, we're happy to work with the board and whatever the board members desire. We prefer.
I'm a little concerned because we're talking about a lot of possible changes to the plans that have been submitted that we have reviewed. This is getting a little vague, and I am concerned that we don't know exactly what we're agreeing to today, and that's why the opportunity to have additional conversations between the applicant and the city is appealing, at least to me.
And Madam Chair, my client is signaling to me that they're not sure that neutral color has been agreed to in the staff report, so we would like to check that out, just to make sure.
And there again is another kind of open-ended thing. It would be much more helpful to the board if this could come back to us with specifics and a recommendation or no, a recommendation against approval. But I don't think it's helpful for us just to be discussing, well, we could do this, we could do that.
Just a thought, would we want to give them the opportunity to just go meet in the back of the room while we
Yeah,
go on to director's report? If they can work it out, great. If they can't, then they have the option to come back next month.
Is this sufficiently far along as far as the city's concerned that a conversation in the hallway right now this afternoon would be meaningful and helpful?
I think what we would want to know is, I think we'd have some concerns about if the board directed us to work out a reduction, that we do that, and then also be clear about the type of landscaping that's being proposed. Do we have information from them on what plants that they would want to? I think we also need some clarification on whether there's a cover, a continuous type cover over these, because I thought I saw some drawings that maybe indicated otherwise, which was not our understanding. So there's just a few things we'd like to do that.
Right. Is it realistic for you to be able to do that with a hallway meeting this afternoon, or do you need to have some more specifics?
We can try. How about that? If perhaps we can go work that out while you're having your other presentation, see if we can do that. And if not, we'll come back and tell you we're not comfortable, or this is where we think we can be.
All right, Counselor.
I believe our applicant would like to weigh in on this as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to say one thing. We came very prepared. We have a list of all our landscaping for the project, and we can get that resolved very quickly. The reason that we're very anxious to try to get a decision today is because the contract permit or due diligence is expiring, and we're unable to get it extended, and it puts us in a tough situation to push it out another month. So I feel like the issues are very simple right now, And if it's just a matter of defining the color, the neutral, we're committed to silver or whatever works for the board. That's not a major issue.
Okay, well, go ahead and meet.
What's that extension with again? You couldn't get an extension?
That's the overall, the parcel itself. There's another,
Okay.
Just got due diligence period of the purchase contract. Yeah.
exactly, with the purchase contract.
I'd like some guidance from our council. We are at the point in the process for cross-examination. We have yet to hear comments from the public. Is this an all right time for them to have a meeting? Do we need to recess the hearing to let that happen?
Yeah, what I would do is, because you have agreement of the applicant and the city staff to attempt to work out whatever issues remain while the remaining presentation is made to the board, I'd get a motion to suspend this hearing to be resumed at the conclusion of the presentation of the director's item that's on today's agenda. Bring everybody back and we'll pick it up. I suggest that pending those discussions, we give a couple extra minutes to party or to city and applicant to update the board on the status of those discussions, where we are, and then we can move on to cross-examination and the remainder of the items required by our processes.
All right, thank you. All right, that's what we're going to do. Is there a motion to suspend this hearing?
So moved.
All right.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Madam Chair, can we steal one of the landscape plans that we passed out? Can we steal that for a moment, please?
Okay, Mr. Preston? This is the one you gave to me.
Get over with,
Good job.
Was that a motion to party?
I know those spots. I know those spots. I just think they did a lot.
Yeah, the motion was to suspend pending the presentation of our director's item, and then when they're concluded, we'll come back.
All right. All right, as council just stated, we're going to, as council just stated, we're going to move on the agenda to the director's items.
Good afternoon, Jamie Lopko. I'm a long-range planning manager for the city and the Planning and Development Department. And we are here today to present some updated information on our comprehensive plan rewrite, including the vision statement and preliminary framework. As you may recall, our consultant HDR did present to you back in October of 2021, as well as City Council in November of 2021, to get some information from you on where we're headed with the comprehensive plan and the framework that we're building for that. So I'm back to you today to give you kind of an update on where we are, refresh your memory on what we're doing, and give you some progress on where we're at with the comprehensive plan. So as part of the presentation today, I'm going to go over our vision statement, the planning themes, preliminary framework, plan organization, and the next steps in the rewrite. So again, our vision statements, aspirational statements, ours really goes over the qualities that make the city an attractive and sustainable place. And it's based on the feedback that we've received both from the public as well as the board and the city council. So the vision statement that we have is from the bay to the beach. Clearwater is a city of diverse, unique, and special places, livable neighborhoods, economic resiliency, friendly people, and amazing opportunities. So we began the process of our rewrite with extensive community engagement to ensure we understood expectations of the residents. And so based on what we heard in this engagement and building on that vision statement, we came up with the planning themes. And these are slightly different than what you've seen before, but they're basically the same premise. So we have a city of opportunity, that the city offers opportunities to raise a family, to start or build a business, to visit for the day, or have an extended vacation. Our livable and attractive places, that we have a unique natural setting, rich history and culture, locational advantages with strong neighborhoods, a thriving downtown, and quality parks and recreation. Sustainable and resilient environment. We're committed to being a good steward of the environment, and we take actions to focus on protecting and conserving our natural, coastal, and cultural resources. Connected and accessible, as we strive for safe, accessible, and integrated mobility for our residents, workers, and visitors to access our destinations and opportunities. Diverse and inclusive is we celebrate our rich history and heritage of our neighborhoods, as well as a diverse and broad range of educational, entertainment, cultural, recreational, and economic opportunities available to our community. And lastly, we have our cooperative and responsive governments, and that is our quality and accessible communications to make sure that we're engaging the public, we're ensuring transparency and openness in our communication, collaboration, and engagement. So we're moving into our framework. It was a place-based approach to build on the design framework in our current plan to develop this preliminary plan framework. The framework is going to be used as a point of reference in developing our goals, objectives, and policies in the comprehensive plan. And so as part of the place-based approach, we have 5 types of places that we're using to describe the conditions in the city that are going to represent a starting point for us to define preferred conditions across the city and guide the development of objectives and policies in the plan. I'm going to briefly go over those. City neighborhoods, we have diverse neighborhoods, wide range of housing lifestyle options, and so our objectives and policies are going to focus on preserving our older historic neighborhoods while stabilizing, sustaining other neighborhoods to expand our housing choices, increase affordability, and improve livability. Our downtown and our beach, these are our traditional centers for living, working, entertainment, and shopping. They're our most dense and walkable areas. And so we want to focus on the continued success of those areas, but offer guidance in activating our vacant and underutilized spaces, also the character and mobility for the residents, visitors, and workers in those areas. Our mixed-use centers, that's along US 19 and Fort Harrison. Those are our living, working, and shopping areas, but they're more auto-oriented. So the focus of those will be reinvestment and redevelopment to attract employment intensive uses, but also improve access, connectability, and walkability of those areas. We have our corridors and our neighborhood centers. Those are more local focal points that are going to meet your daily needs of the neighborhoods. And the focus there will be to promote a mix of uses that will activate underutilized properties, improve the mobility, but also mitigate any impacts of adjacent neighborhoods. And lastly is our Hercules District, which has traditionally been our industrial area for some small-scale manufacturing, assembly, repair, and maker spaces. And so the focus there will be protecting this employment area while providing opportunities for a broader range of employment-supported uses. And so the themes were used to create chapters for the new plan. Our current plan is built around elements that were required by an old rule from the state called 9J5. Well, that was repealed, and so now we have the ability to write the plan in a more user-friendly format that might be easier to find some of the things based on topics. So we're looking at 5 chapters, and so these 5 chapters are mobility. That's going to be our level of surface, our safety, our vision zero, our complete streets, anything transportation related. Quality places is going to be where we find housing, land use, our mixed use centers and our corridors. Coastal and conservation is going to cover our flood hazards, our coastal and resource management, our natural resource protection. Parks and public places are going to be our parks, recs, recreation areas, trails, and community centers. And lastly is our support services, which is more utilities of solid waste, water, wastewater, stormwater. And so our next steps, where we are in the process right now, is we're in the process of drafting the actual goals, objectives, and policies of those chapters. Right now, our biggest focus on mobility and quality places, we're working with our consultant HDR on those, and the remaining 3 chapters will be written by staff. And so the intention is to bring out workshops, and instead of rolling out an entire plan for somebody to try and digest it once, we're going to try and do it in some pieces. We'll try to do it with steps of like quality places and mobility will be first. So we will get those prepared, put them on the Clearwater 2045 website, put some surveys out there, let people make comments on them. We'll work with our public communications department to develop a communication strategy that will put out some public notices, some social media posts to try and get some excitement around those things. And then once we've put it out there for several weeks, we will then hold a couple of workshops in different locations within the community on those 2 chapters. We will then go through the same process for the next 3 chapters, But then at the end, when the full plan is ready, we'll then again have several workshops out in the community for people who were unable to attend the other ones to do a full plan of the workshops for the plan when it's prepared. And then we will actually start through the approval process, which will actually begin with this board in the spring of 2023, but it is a very lengthy process, so it will take up until the fall of 2023 to get it through the state approval process. But we're hopeful to bring something to this board in the late spring. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that presentation.
Yep.
Anyone have questions? All right, thank you, we appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Oh,
Sounds great. What a challenge.
Yes, sir.
I do have one little bitty element of all the 2,200 things you brought up there. I have one element that's been combined on my mind, and I'm wondering where that shows up. Well, maybe two. One of them is sea level rise. And I know you had mitigation, but as sea level increases to rise more rapidly, our mitigation responses can't be just the old one, plant different grasses. You're seeing as each hurricane comes in a little bit higher, and we've been lucky. I've been lucky. So I'm wondering how that is. Are we in a position in that to grab some of those issues by the throat? Maybe that's the right word, and say, sorry, it's bad news. We got to do these things. We just cannot keep saying let's do the same thing and hoping the next administration is going to take it, because I know it's sort of a political concern. No good politician is going to say you can't be here in 10 years. They'll be out of office in 2 minutes. That's how these things, not in the city of Clearwater, any place. That's one. And the second one is the city going to perhaps be looking at alternatives? I've had a concern, I'll say it before, about natural gas in the city, and it's a concern from environmental, it's methane. Just what's bubbling up in the ocean we've seen. That's the same stuff, but which 85 times worse than CO2. But that's not really my point. I'm saying that the city has an opportunity to take some of those natural gas people and utilize them into the resiliency of the city by perhaps developing resilient electrical backup power supplies and things that will supply the whole city when we have a hurricane, so we no longer are only dependent on what happens from Duke Energy or somebody. The same people could do that job really well. They're good engineers there. And have we looked at, say, taking some of these properties and looking at batteries that will support us for 2 weeks instead of for 10 minutes? And so when we have a hurricane come through, we can actually be running the whole city based upon our solar and other options. And I'm just wondering if that would be a place where that could come into that plan and be discussed. You can't do it now. I'm just saying, where would I stand up someday and say, here I am again?
Sea level rise, we are looking at that. We will, of course, touch on it in coastal, in our conservation and coastal management chapter, but also sustainability and resiliency is a theme, overarching theme that's going to be touched on in many of the chapters. So I can say that it may be covered in multiple chapters, and it is something that we are looking at. As for the gas, that's not something that we've looked at this point, but it is something that I will make sure to discuss with the staff when we're writing the support services chapter to see if there's something we could possibly do there.
Has advanced opportunities for that. We have a good utility system here and good facilities and people, and if they can do more, especially if we're phasing out natural gas, which I hope we do at some point, and we go to electric, that they could be used in those services just as well and even better, and set a standard for the country.
Have you guys looked at the electric vehicles as far as converting the city vehicles to that? Is that part of the plan to move in that direction?
We are looking at electric vehicles and the infrastructure required for those, and there may be some overarching policies relative to that.
And as far I know, there's also been a solar study done on the city. Is that being brought into this also?
Yes. We're also looking at solar.
If I may, Lauren Matsky, Planning and Development. I stole Gina's chair while she's out of the office. Some of the things that you're mentioning are more the true implementation component of it. So this is a higher level document, of course, like regarding the policies and the direction, but we look at it as kind of teeing up to a certain degree our work program for the next 5 to 10 years. That would need to be synthesized, of course, with city council's strategic direction and their plan, and then ultimately the city manager gives us our direction for a true implementation. Just so you know, we have a green fleet policy that's in place, so there are things that our sustainability group is working on. It doesn't have to be in the comp plan for us to do it, but this is our opportunity to really modernize, bring us up, and set those aspirational goals for us. But we don't want them to be aspirational and that we have no intentions of meeting them. So there's going to be enough direction in there to start working into the implementation.
Mr. Flannery, just to give you some information that maybe you're not aware with as far as solar, or as far as storage energy, I'm actually going to Israel tomorrow, meeting with a company that is revolutionizing battery storage. Brand new, never seen technology, 2024, lighter, cheaper, faster. So batteries that when we talk about solar batteries and they don't last as long, and this company is revolutionizing it. I mean, everyone's going to have to come to them. So I happen to just be meeting the CEO there. It was just random. He went to high school with me 35 years ago. But it is an amazing company, and what they're going to do with sulfur and how they're restructuring how batteries are made from ground up. So as soon as I have that information, City of Clearwater will be the first person that I would probably tell them about.
Maybe second, but those are what I'm talking about. There's a number of systems out there, and this may be the best, but there's like vanadium, there's carbon, there's lead, there's air batteries, there's iron batteries, there's a number of different approaches that could solve our problems.
Yep.
But they take a lot of space. You'll put them in the back of your trunk of your car, they take maybe a half a block. There may be whole big vats of chemicals that mix together and make the electricity there. But that's the way this is going to be solved. But we need to be looking at it now and making those plans so the city can be self-sufficient when the next hurricane comes through. And we're not going to be like at low level. We have the opportunity. Clearwater is blessed by having high elevations. That doesn't happen much on the coast of Florida. Not many cities have that. And we can be sustainable in the next hurricane, even when we're cut off from everything, and keep and aim for carbon neutral along the same way. So I'm really interested in exactly what you're talking about.
The batteries are smaller, cheaper, and the material is easily found. So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, cool. And I just came from Venice, and I've watched the sea level rise there, and they think they have a 10-year plan. Good luck.
Anything else, folks?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Well, if they're not back, I'll
Maybe someone could
Go get
check
'em.
and see what their status
I'll take a
is.
brief recess.
Take
and
a
I'll see you.
quick-
All right.
All right, all right. We're taking a break. the applicant ready as well?
One of their bigger ships.
We can resume.
I think she's saying she doesn't trust you to read it, Mark.
Totally trust you.
Oh, do you want to read it?
No, Alec can do it.
I got it. Okay.
All right. We're going to reopen the hearing at this time, and we'd appreciate advice from the city staff and the applicant as to whether you've made any progress.
Good afternoon, Ellen Crandall, Planning and Development. I believe we have made very good progress, so I can convey to you what we've agreed upon. So we're talking about the plan here at the northwest corner. We are in agreement to remove these 4 parking spaces. If you remember the staff report, they have extra parking, so this does not cause an issue with that.
Should put it on
These
this.
4 parking spaces and
Hold on a second. Can we put it on the screen too, please? So we can't see.
Aha.
There we go.
There we go.
That helps.
Oh, perfect.
Can't turn his head like me.
See, I can see it behind you, and that's my
No.
cue to say, oh, it's.
They can't. In the middle, they're tough.
Okay.
Okay, so these are the parking spaces at the northwest corner of the property, which is along Belcher Road. They have excess parking, so we are talking about removing 4 parking spaces and 5 booms in this area and revising that to additional landscape area. This allows for better preservation of the trees. And, you know, per their prior slides, this was like an 85-foot setback. This would still be a considerable setback, and a neutral color of white. And I can read the exact modifications of the conditions of approval. So if you're looking at the staff report, and we were originally talking about condition of approval number 5, so we would propose to revise that, basically to truncate it, so that it says that prior to the issuance of any building and construction permit excluding demolition and clearing and grubbing accessory mechanical equipment, including the AC unit on the east side of the building along Old Coachman Road, is removed. So that addresses the AC unit, and then we'll do separately the parking spaces. So then we would propose a new additional condition of approval number 13. That would say, prior to the issuance of any building permit excluding demolition and clearing and grubbing, revised plans are submitted, removing the 4 parking spaces and the 5 booms at the northwest corner, and providing an improved landscape plan with additional area, trees, and plants such as native understory sensitive to the existing tree root systems to the satisfaction of city staff. You know, Steve Jordan again, they provided this, they show some of the species. Not terribly concerned about nailing down the exact species more than kind of the area and generally what are we talking about, trees, ground cover, hedges. So that would be an additional condition number 13, and then we propose an additional condition number 14, which would be that the vacuum booms shall be painted white to match the buildings to the satisfaction of city staff. So I think that covers all of the concerns as far as the number of booms, North Belcher, the landscaping, the color.
Right.
I'm happy to
And
answer any
for
questions or clarify.
clarification, if these additional conditions are acceptable to the applicant, the city could recommend approval of this project?
Yes.
All right, thank you. And if we could hear from the applicant?
Todd Pressman again for record, 202nd Avenue South, number 451, St. Petersburg. We appreciate the board's time and deference and the staff, and we agree to those conditions. Thank you.
All right, Council, in terms of following through the
Yeah.
remainder items on our procedure, what say you?
I would say that at present, that brings you to the conclusion of the presentations by development staff and applicants, so I would suggest that you, though it may be cursory at this point, to move down the remainder of your items and make sure that we cover
Absolutely.
everything.
All right. Then is there cross-examination by planning and development staff?
No cross.
Cross-examination by the applicant? All right. Comments by the public? Anyone wish to speak on this? There being none, closing remarks? Thank you. Closing remarks by the applicant? All right. We'll close the public hearing and discussion and vote by the board. I think we really appreciate you all pulling through and doing this, making it happen. Because this really, actually, to me at least, would have been a tough call. So I'm really, really pleased that you were able to find a way to make it work. All right,
I would only suggest that when a motion be made on this, if you're going to recommend approval based on, you always incorporate the staff report, that the staff report be incorporated as amended, as explained here in my staff this afternoon.
any discussion, or is there a motion?
I'll just go to say that I just feel staff and the developer did a great job, and I think it's a great addition as far as what the improvements are and even the changes there, and so I'm all for it.
I just have to say, I think it's great the way the city and the developer both work together. That's what we want as a city.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Motion, we approve.
All right, we need to follow the
Yeah,
script.
sorry. It's a level 2, right?
I don't have my uniform.
Is it level 2?
Yes.
Right, it's
John's going to take it.
All right, John's going to
Bruce
get
is
it.
really good at it.
For it.
Okay. I move to approve case number FLD 2022-05016/PLT 2022-05006 with, based on the evidence and testimony presented in the application, the staff report as amended with the amendments to the conditions of approval as stated in the record, and other evidence at today's hearing, and hereby adopt the findings and fact and conclusions of the law stated in the staff report with conditions of approval as amended.
I second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Excellent. The items approved
Congratulations.
with-
Congratulations.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Is there anything further to come before the board today? If not, we're adjourned at 3:08.
This way I want to memorize it.
Work, right?